The first sign that someone had been in my house was the toothbrush. That sounds stupid, I know. Out of everything I'm about to tell you, that's the part that still bothers me the most. Not the blood, not the footsteps, not even what I saw standing at the end of my hallway. It was the toothbrush, because I always leave it in the same place. Right side of the sink, facing the mirror. I live alone, and I'm the kind of person who notices when small things are out of place. Maybe it comes from years of living by myself, or maybe it's because once you start paying your own bills, your own routines become the only thing that makes life feel normal. So when I walked into my bathroom that Thursday night and saw my toothbrush lying flat in the sink basin, I stopped. I just stood there staring at it. It wasn't on the counter. It wasn't where I left it. It was wet. And I hadn't been home in 12 hours. I remember looking around the bathroom like the room might explain itself. Towel still hanging where I left it. Medicine cabinet closed. Shower curtain half open. Normal. But that toothbrush wasn't normal. I picked it up with 2 fingers, rinsed it off, and told myself maybe I'd knocked it in there that morning and forgot. That's what I told myself anyway. Then I looked in the mirror and saw a handprint on the outside of the medicine cabinet. Not mine. Too large. Too long in the fingers. Smudged low like someone had leaned in close. The kind of print you only notice once the light hits it the right way. I wiped it off immediately. Didn't know why. I wish I hadn't. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was staying in the house. I should have left right then, grabbed my keys, slept somewhere else, figured it out in the morning. But that's not how your brain works when you're scared. When something feels off, the first thing your mind does is look for an excuse. Maybe maintenance came in. Maybe my brother stopped by. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm paranoid. That word will get people killed. Paranoid. I locked the front door, checked the back door, checked the kitchen window, checked the sliding glass door. Everything was shut. I even looked under the bed. Nothing. At around 10:15, I made tea and sat in the living room with the TV on low. I wasn't really watching it. I just wanted noise. Something human. Something normal. And that's when I noticed the second thing. The chain lock on the front door was hanging. Not broken, just hanging. I never used the chain lock. Ever. I forgot I even had one. But there it was, hooked through like someone had stood inside my house and secured it. That didn't make sense because if someone had come in while I was at work, how did they get out and leave it latched? I walked over slow, unhooked it, and stared at the door like it might answer me. Then I heard a sound from upstairs. 1 footstep. That was all. A single heavy step above my living room. I turned the TV off. The whole house went dead quiet. I stood there with my mug in my hand, listening so hard it made my ears ring. Nothing. Then another step. Slow, measured, like someone upstairs had heard me stop moving, and decided to stop moving too. Every part of my body locked up. I knew 2 things in that moment. First, I was not alone. Second, whoever was upstairs knew exactly where I was. I backed up toward the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I had. I didn't call out. I didn't say hello. I didn't try to be brave. I pulled my phone out and dialed 911. It rang once, then went dead. No service. That had never happened in my house. Ever. I moved to the window over the sink to try and get a signal, but before I got there, I heard something else. A floorboard creak. Not upstairs, right behind me. I turned so fast I hit the counter with my hip. Nobody there. Kitchen empty, hallway dark. But the back door was open. Only a few inches, but enough to let cold air leak inside. And I knew I had locked it. I know I had. I looked at that open door, and this awful thought hit me. What if the person upstairs wasn't the only one? That's when survival mode finally kicked in. I ran to the pantry, crouched down where I could still see part of the kitchen, and forced myself to breathe through my nose so they wouldn't hear me. I could hear movement now. Not 1 person, at least 2. 1 upstairs, 1 downstairs. The one downstairs moved lightly, careful, patient. The one upstairs was heavier, like he didn't care if I heard him anymore. And then I heard a voice, soft, male, calm. "Check the bathroom again." I stopped breathing. There are moments in life when fear becomes something physical. It's not a feeling anymore. It's a substance. It fills your chest, your throat, your stomach. It turns your arms numb. Because hearing footsteps is one thing. Hearing a voice means this is real. Hearing a voice means this was planned. A second voice answered from somewhere above me. "She's still here." I don't know how long I stayed crouched there, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, but it felt endless. Then the downstairs one laughed, quiet, almost under his breath, and said, "I know." I had never felt terror like that in my life, not because they were in my house, because they were talking about me like I was already theirs. If you're listening right now, thank you for watching Insomniac, and seriously, subscribe, because this one only gets worse. I had to get out. That became the only thought left in my head. Not fight, not hide, get out. The problem was the back door was open, and one of them was somewhere near it. The front door was across the living room. The stairs were between me and it, and I still didn't know how many there actually were. Then my phone buzzed, so loud in that silence it nearly made me cry out. Unknown number, one text, "We can see you." I looked down at my phone so fast my vision blurred, and then another message came in. Wrong spot. I didn't understand what that meant until I looked up. The pantry door had slats, not solid wood, slats, tiny angled openings, enough to hide me from a quick glance, but not from someone standing at the right angle. I slowly turned my head toward the kitchen doorway and saw a man standing there. He didn't rush me, he didn't lunge. He just stood in the dark, half his face hidden, watching through the slats like he'd been enjoying it. Tall, thin, hood up, one hand hanging at his side, the other holding something metallic. I don't even remember moving. I exploded out of that pantry so hard the door hit the wall. I ran straight at him because there was nowhere else to go. I buried the knife in his shoulder. I felt it go in. He made this shocked, wet sound and staggered back into the table, knocking over a chair. And from upstairs I heard pounding footsteps. The other one was coming. I ran for the front door. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely work the lock, and that stupid chain, the one I never use, caught for half a second and nearly cost me everything. By the time I ripped the door open, I heard the first man behind me again, not yelling, laughing. That was the worst part. I got outside, barefoot, hit the porch, slipped on wet concrete, and scrambled into the yard. I didn't stop at the sidewalk. I ran into the street screaming for help. Lights came on up and down the block. Dogs started barking. And finally, I saw my neighbor's front door open. An older guy named Dennis stepped out with a flashlight shouting, "What happened?" I pointed back at my house. The front door was still open, but nobody came out. Police got there fast, faster than I expected. They cleared the house top to bottom. They found blood in the kitchen, mine on the pantry door where I'd cut my hand, and his, the man I stabbed, on the table and the floor. But they didn't find him. They didn't find either of them. What they did find upstairs made one officer walk back outside and throw up in my bushes. In the guest room, they'd set up a folding chair facing the hallway. On the floor next to it was a notebook. Inside were dates, times, little observations written in neat block letters. Leaves for work, 7:12 a.m., usually home by 6:04 p.m., bathroom light left on Tuesday. Talks on phone in kitchen sleeps on left side. Has not noticed attic access. I didn't have an attic. At least I didn't think I did. Turns out there was a crawl space above the second floor closet. Tiny access panel painted over years ago. The police had to pry it open. Inside, there were water bottles, snack wrappers, blankets, and a vent that looked down into my bedroom through a narrow gap in the ductwork insulation. Someone had been living above me, watching me sleep. The detective asked if anything had been missing over the past few weeks. At first I said no. Then I started thinking. My toothpaste running out too fast. A yogurt missing from the fridge. A towel damp when I knew I hadn't used it. The toothbrush in the sink. He looked at me for a long second and said, "I don't think they just broke in tonight." That sentence changed something in me. Because once you realize they didn't just enter your home, they entered your routine, your private life, your quiet moments. It stops feeling like a break-in and starts feeling like a disease. I stayed in a motel that night, then another, then with my brother for a week. The police never found them. The blood matched no one in the system. No cameras on my street caught a face. It should end there. That's where a normal story would end. But about 9 days later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was my toothbrush, dry, clean. And taped to it was a note. 3 lines. "You noticed too soon. He said we could have stayed longer. Check the medicine cabinet." I dropped it right there in the parking lot outside my brother's apartment. I didn't even take it inside. I just stood there staring at it on the ground. Like if I looked long enough, it would stop being real. I never went back to that house alone. I made the police go with me. When they opened the bathroom medicine cabinet, there was nothing inside. At first, just empty shelves. The officer started to close it, and that's when he paused. He leaned in closer, then slowly opened it all the way again. And that's when I saw it, written in black marker on the inside of the mirror panel, only visible when the cabinet was open. "Next time, don't wipe the print off." I felt my legs give out right there, because that meant one thing. They hadn't just been in my house. They were still thinking about it, still watching, still remembering every little thing I did. I sold the house 3 months later. Didn't tell the buyer what happened. I still hate that. But I wasn't sleeping anymore. Every sound, every shadow, felt like someone standing just out of sight. And here's the part I've never told anyone. About a year later, I was in a grocery store 2 towns over. Late, almost empty. I walked into the aisle without thinking. Toothbrushes, rows of them, and at the far end, there was a man just standing there, tall, thin, hood up, not moving. I couldn't see his face, but I saw his shoulder, and even from that distance, I could tell one arm didn't hang right, like it healed wrong, like something had gone deep and never let him forget it. So tell me, what would you have done the moment you realized someone had been living in your house, and after all that, would you ever feel safe again?